All right, Jennifer Faz, thanks so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you on this afternoon. I know you and I have been chatting a little bit electronically over social media, and so I'm excited to finally get some face-to-face time, at least that's virtual, and learn a little bit more about you and your companies and your brands and what you do exactly in the business ownership space, specifically home services and ultimately overall franchising. So without me butchering anything, I'll turn it over to you for a quick intro.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to be here. My name is Jennifer Faz. I'm currently with a brand called Men In Kilts. We are one of 10 brands underneath Threshold Brands, umbrella of brands. And previous to that, I was actually a Men In Kilts franchise owner for 4 years before I came on as senior marketing manager here. And then previous to that, I managed digital properties for Valvoline. So I got Valvoline started in social media, manage their global website. So my background's digital marketing, but now I'm fully converted to a franchise lover. So I'm here now.
Awesome. Yeah, that's amazing. And I'd love to dig in a little bit more about what your day-to-day looks like. But just to set the table and make sure we're clear, are you a franchise owner for Men in Kilts?
So I was for 4 years. I
Okay.
had a franchise here in Cincinnati from 2016 until 2020 when someone offered to buy it. You don't have somebody approach you to buy your business too often out of the blue. And
Yeah.
for me, opening the franchise was sort of like a personal goal. I had been in marketing roles my whole career. And especially
Mhm.
working for a large company like Valvoline, it's hard to kind of see what kind of splash you're making in the pool, if you will. And
Right.
so I really wanted to see what I could do on my own. Fell in love with the Men in Kilts brand, opened up my location, and was really successful with it. I grew it. I had 4 trucks and got to the point where was really ready to kind of step back from my Valvoline role and do it even full time. I had an office manager who was helping carry out a lot of the roles that I couldn't while I was working. And so I was getting ready to do that, and then this person offered to buy it, and he's still running it now. And then I took a year off. I was looking at other franchises. Actually, was getting ready to sign with another franchise, and they had a change to their FDD. And so I had to wait for 14 days. And that very day, Men in Kilts corporate called and they asked if I would come run the marketing for the
Yeah.
franchise. So I felt like it was a fate kind of thing, especially with
Mhm.
the timing. And so I went ahead and transferred over as on the corporate side. So I loved when I was in my role as the franchise owner, I loved the business growth side, and the operations side just wasn't for me. Just, you
Yeah.
know, there's operations people, I feel like, and then there's marketing people, and sometimes they're not always the same person. So that was
Yeah.
me.
Well, that's an amazing background, and thank you for that. There's a lot of different places I could go here, but I'm curious. Back in the early days when you signed on with Men in Kilts, what drew you into the brand, that particular line of business? Obviously, it's home services, which is similar, obviously, to the space we're in junk removal. But what drew you into that brand and that concept initially as a franchisee? Obviously, you had the pleasure, I guess, of being on, seeing the franchise world for a while prior to buying into that. But what drew you to that specific brand in particular?
Yeah, a few things drew me to Men in Kilts. So one is the fact that you could cross sell other services. So there's window cleaning, gutter cleaning, pressure washing, and house washing. So I like the fact
Mm-hmm.
that you could sell someone a house wash and then also clean their windows.
Yeah.
Um, the other piece I liked is that it's low overhead as far as you're basically dealing with the equipment, soap and water. Of course, you got your van costs and other fixed costs, but other than that, it's pretty low overhead. So I like that. And in my mind, as long as I had good people working for me, you get that service piece going. You're not having to deal with like a lot of inventory or a brick and mortar. So just a lot of appealing things about just the home service industry in general. So I really
Mm.
like that. And then as far as the Men in Kilts brand, how many times have you tried to recall the name of the guy who cleaned your gutters the previous year? Most of the time, I have to like text my neighbor and say, "What was the name of the guy? I can't remember." So you'll never forget Men in Kilts. You'll never forget that it was the guy in the kilt cleaning your windows. And the other piece to that is that, have you ever met a grumpy guy in a kilt? Like, probably not. Most people haven't. And so those are the perfect people that you want as a customer service face to your company. So I thought, yes, it might be a little bit trickier to get somebody to wear a kilt to begin with, but once if you have those people who are willing to do it, they're people. They're more people oriented.
Yep.
More fun usually. So I liked that aspect a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, I love where you're camping out there in terms of just remembering. As a homeowner, I've talked about this on a lot of podcasts, but like I moved in this home earlier this year, had to get French doors installed. That was a nightmare trying to find a handyman that could do that. Just had my gutters cleaned, and that was a nightmare. And even now, still haven't paid the invoice because I don't have it. And I'm like, you guys want to get paid or what? Like, I'm willing to pay here, and if service
Yeah.
rendered, like, give me the invoice.
Yeah.
Um, so yes, and I don't even remember the guy's name like that I initially contracted with, unless I go back into my text thread and I look it up. So I
Mm-hmm.
totally agree with you there. And that kind of ties into the next question I wanted to ask. Like, what is your, I guess, we pan out even further just into franchising in general. What are your overall thoughts on the franchise world? And obviously we're biased because we're in it, but like, what's your thoughts on the franchise world versus folks trying to start companies on their own? Because you very well could have gone out and started a power washing, window cleaning company that's Jennifer Faz's window cleaning or whatever,
Sure.
and gone that route. What drew you to not only Men in Kilts but just joining an existing brand?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it is much easier for independents to get started these days. There's so many resources online.
Mm,
But back then there were still a lot, but there were less than there are now, even in 2016. But I liked the idea that, yes, I'm taking a risk, but it's a more calculated risk. There's others who have come before me that have, made this successful. Our owner or our founder, Nick Brand, has been doing this for, over 20 years and really solid. He's actually our president now for Men in Kilts,
okay.
and just a really sharp guy. I like that you can lean into the other franchise owners on learning things, and sure, you can do that in some of these Facebook groups. Like if you run across something technical that you need help with, you can do that. But you run into a lot of I don't know, sometimes shady advice, or there's people who are just kind of being snarky on those
Mm,
forums. And
yeah.
these are, if you're leaning into your own group, they have your best interest in mind. And we even have a trainer who, it's his only job to make sure that he researches the best methods, the best products, the best tools. And so to me, there's a lot of value in that because we always have someone on our side. I can contact at any time. We have a chat group. There's
Yeah.
always messages going back and forth. And so it is like a family. And then, business ownership in general can be a roller coaster ride. If you're in your lows that we all get sometimes, your peers are the ones that lift you up. So the other franchise owners,
Mm,
they've been there, they've usually encountered what you've encountered, and really kind of step by step can help you through anything that comes your way. So I love
yeah.
that. And then just having that really professional brand recognition. I mean, we don't have a huge footprint yet, but we are running, national brand awareness ads across our entire footprint. And
Mm,
we did a nice photo shoot. Everything looks very professional. So I kind of feel like, yes, as a business owner or franchise owner, it was up to me ultimately to make it successful. And, my ground game had to be strong. But
mm,
having the professional brand behind me was just kind of like a bonus. So yeah, I still had to take my before and after pictures. I still had to go to networking, but everything that the brand provided me was just kind of bonus. So it was a value to me.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And what I always come back to, and I didn't know this prior to 12 months ago when I started to really dive into the franchising world, and that's just the statistics of it. Like, I don't know what the actual statistics are. I heard I was listening to a podcast this morning, and somebody was like, "There's a lot of different analytics thrown around in the franchising world, and nobody really knows what the accurate answers are." But generally speaking, starting a business from scratch, not as part of a franchise system, the statistics are not as well in your favor as they are if you join a franchise system. And the way I look at it is, folks can, to your point, there's a lot of resources online, Facebook groups, courses that you can buy, so on and so forth, mastermind groups. You can become a part of all of these. But there's nothing like having Jennifer Faz in Cincinnati, who also knows Davis Fisher in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we both are part of the same brand, waking up tomorrow having to do the same thing, which is generate a lead for window cleaning, power washing, gutter cleaning, whatever. Talk to that customer, book the job, get in front of them, do a good job, follow up. There's nothing like that relationship that you and I would have because we exist in the same brand. Um, and so there's that trust there. And what I always tell folks is, yes, you can, there's always courses that you can buy, but the ongoing support is what you're missing out on. And if you try to tell me, well, there's Facebook groups for ongoing support, yes, and those have come a long way, and those are great. I'm a part of a lot of them, but there's nothing like the real time, because a lot of what we do is time sensitive. There's nothing like a real time text that I could send to you or you to me or to your VP or whoever and get a quick answer. Maybe it's insurance related. Maybe it's, oh, you've got an upset customer and how do you fix that? Maybe somebody's trying to reach out to your corporate office and they can't get through. They got a bad number, whatever the case may be. Like, the Facebook groups can't help you solve for that. And so when you start looking at Apple, it's, when you start looking at it that way, the franchise world is much more supportive, I guess, at a successful, place than the Facebook groups. Um, and then, beyond that, like, when you look at the numbers and the investment, you may pay 50 grand for a franchise fee to get into one of these, or a little bit less, a little bit more. 50 grand seems kind of average. And then compared to your like course, you may go buy a $10,000, $20,000 course, but that course is a one-time thing. And here's your pamphlet or whatever it is. Go do with it what you want, but you don't have the ongoing support. So when you look at it, from just as a franchise fee, because every business has startup costs, franchise business or starting it on your own. So take those away and just look at the next investment, which is a franchise fee. If it's 50 grand and you're signing a 10-year franchise agreement, I look at that as an investment, a $5,000 investment for the next 10 years. Yes, it's due up front, but like, spread it out over 10 years, you're paying 5 grand to be a part of this brand versus a course that you may pay 10 or 20 grand for up front. And it's a sunk cost. Like, you get nothing else besides that hard copy of, or digital copy of the pamphlet. So anyways, I'm going off on a tangent, but that to me is those reasons are reasons enough to highly consider a franchise. And then you get into all of the, well, let's do your due diligence to figure out which one is the right fit for you. And there's, a whole conversation to be had there. I'm curious, when you started your Men in Kilts franchise, Jennifer, what did you already have in place relative to like your target ramp up time? Like, if you wanted to be off the ground in 30 days, you sign your franchise agreement and you wanted to have, revenue starting to track in your books within 30 days or 60 or 90, whatever that is for you guys. Did you already have like teams in place, like employees that you could immediately start leveraging? Did you already have, technology and stuff like that, insurance set up? Like, how, talk us through just that, those initial days as a franchise owner, what you already had versus what you needed to go out and get.
Yeah, so I had nothing when I signed. I was just completely flying blind, but flying with faith with the franchise. Obviously, they have a vested interest in making sure that I succeeded. And
Mm.
so I signed in, I think it was mid-February, and it was funny. They were doing their annual convention out in Houston at the time, And so the CEO at the time, he said, "Hey, we're doing our convention. Why don't you just come on out?" And
Yeah.
so I actually went out and signed my papers at the convention. But
Oh, nice.
it was really awesome because everybody was there. All the franchise owners were there. I learned so much in those few days. I mean, it was
Mm.
perfect that the
Yeah.
time coincided that way. And so, I mean, I got to see them do demos of everything. I got to ask them questions. They were presenting. I took so many notes. And then it was just a few months later. So they gave me pretty much a blueprint and said, you need to go buy this. You need to, this is the kind of truck you need, get it wrapped. And so they walked me through every single step, which was really nice because I appreciate that having kind of like just a shortcut because like you said, if I were doing that on my own, I would just be researching and researching, and so it really cut that down a lot. And I just followed the blueprint. I had all of my equipment and my truck all ready to go. I had my first employee hired by the time they came out for training, so they did some training before they came out, and then they did on-site training. So we did 10 days of training in the field, and our CEO at the time was great. He was out there with us. I actually requested him to do the training. We didn't have an actual trainer in place at
Yeah.
that time in 2016, but I requested he come out, and he was awesome. Like, he didn't answer his phone once. You're thinking a CEO, he's got plenty to do, but he didn't answer his phone once. He showed us everything, and we went out, we did all of the services. I had neighbors actually lined up to do the services at a hefty discount just because I wanted the practice.
Yeah.
And it worked out really well too because whoever signed up but we couldn't get to during training, we continued the next week or two. And so my technician, he learned his skills during training week, and then he continued those in the weeks to follow on those customers. And because we were giving them a good discount, they weren't,
Yeah.
upset if it took us a little bit longer or whatever. With these kind of
Mhm.
services, you've got 4 different services, so it's a lot to learn. I mean, you think,
Yeah.
there's safety that's involved. You got to do things a safe way. Every house is different. If you're putting up ladders, every approach is different. There might be, bushes in the way, or it might be on an incline. And so there's just a lot to learn. And so I really valued that time that we had.
That's really great. I love the fact that you had the convention coinciding. I bet that was massively helpful. So now on the corporate side, now that you get to be part of Thresholds and kind of see, I'm going to say outside looking in. I don't even know if that's an accurate way to put it, but from a marketing perspective, what's your vision for I think you mentioned 10 brands that Threshold has underneath it. What's your day to day look like, I guess, within Thresholds for marketing? And are you taking care of 10 brands?
No, thank goodness. No, that's not
Yeah.
me. Each of our brands have marketing support in place. We do have some shared services that we all use, and then we come together to share ideas. Some of we're trying to streamline our vendors, try to help with cost savings there. So that's the other great benefit of a franchise is you can get some pretty nice tools at a discounted rate, or sometimes it's baked into just what we do across
Yeah.
all of the brands. Which if you were to go and get those tools on your own as an independent, it would, cost you a whole lot more. And
Mhm.
so that is, how we're structured. So I'm only over Men in Kilts. And so my responsibilities encompass everything from laying out the strategy, our campaigns, making sure our social media is in order. We do push out some social media for our locations, and encourage them to do their own as well. I, make sure that we've got different email drip campaigns in place. My responsibilities encompass coaching the owners. So when we start an owner up, I'm meeting with them and going over their marketing plan. They can bounce things off me if they are approached in their location to do like a sponsorship or an event. They can run that by me and get my feedback. I'm, often, we'll even create things if there's something within our bank of creative, which I think at last count I had like almost 700 assets that they could pull from. So we've got like a whole brand bank of assets that they can use, whether it's social media, videos, photos, um, all of our variations in logos, colors. Um, we have a creative person, who's our manages our creative services group, and they're in charge of, doing any of the creative that I request. But we also, if the owners want something created that we don't have in the bank of 700 assets, they can put in a request and have them do that for them too, which is nice.
Mm,
Because again, you'd be hiring that out if you were an
totally.
independent. Yeah.
Where do the Men in Kilts customers live mostly? Is this a like a knee jerk reaction type sale? Like, I walk out my look at my house and I'm like, man, this thing is grungy, and I'm going to Google trying to find somebody. I feel like it's not as much that as it is our business. That's very much so junk removal. Walked out in my garage, it's full of crap. Let me call somebody, come out today or tomorrow and get rid of this stuff. I feel like Men in Kills business isn't that, but it's certainly not on the end of you're going through a bathroom remodel and this is going to be weeks and weeks of planning and ultimately selecting a vendor, months down the line, right? So I'm assuming you guys fall somewhere in the middle of that, but talk us through like what that process looks like for like, is there a lot of inbound? Is there a lot of outbound? And also what channels do you find the Men in Kilts customers in mainly? Is it Google AdWords? Do you find them on social media, or is it kind of even spread across the board?
Yeah, it's a mix of everything above. But, if you think about the services that we do, gutter cleaning is very necessary, and some people do it religiously whenever it's required. So it depends on the amount of tree coverage you have in your yard, of course. But some people do it religiously. Some people wait until their gutters are overflowing. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, it's a necessary service. And so we're very busy during that season when stuff falls from the trees, of course. The other services, like window cleaning, again, there are some people who do that religiously. Some people never do it. I wish we were in Europe because I think it's like it's customary for them to do it weekly, which is
Oh,
like
wow.
amazing to me. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so we don't, we love the European people who come here and and have that kind of mentality. But a lot of it is creating that need. Like pressure washing is such an extraordinary before and after, and you can make such a difference in with your home for very little money. And it's something that kind of sneaks up on people. They don't realize that mildew is building up over time, and
Yeah.
so a lot of times it takes us maybe going to their neighbor's home and they see, we clean a stretch of sidewalk and then they actually see how dirty theirs is.
Yeah.
And so those before and after photos become very important. So that's where like social media is great for it. We don't necessarily get a lot of like leads attributed to social media because a lot of people, they're mostly on there to socialize, but
Yeah.
we get a lot of brand awareness from social media. So creating
Yeah.
that need through those before and after photos is huge. But also just an omni-channel approach. So I really coach to all of our owners is to make sure that they're using all channels available, and that rule of 7 in marketing is you must reach some, and I think it's even increased to rule of 9 in
Mm,
marketing is someone needs to see your message 7 to 9 times before they're interested or have that awareness of you. And so that could be repetition and that could be in multiple channels. And we see, yeah, certainly most people are going to say, I found you on Google, and we do get a lot of people
yeah.
on Google, but the ground game, everything else works together. So I try to coach our owners that make sure you select an area where you can do your offline marketing and then marry it to your digital marketing. So if you've got, social media ads running, make sure they're running in an area where you can effectively do other tactics like the yard signs, the door hangers.
Mm.
And I'm actually um, a big proponent of bringing direct mail back. I don't know if you've noticed, but everyone's mailbox is empty now.
Mm.
It used to be your mailbox was just full of junk mail. Now I'll go out there sometimes and there's not one piece in there because everyone has shifted their attention to digital. And
Yeah.
I'm I really think it's kind of the old new business edge. If you are showing up in people's mailboxes now, because now it's the opposite. There's digital clutter, and
Mm.
direct mail can be very effective through putting offers in someone's hands. A lot of times it sits on their countertop for a while, and so everything works in tandem. And it's really important to get those touch points. I always give the example when I started my location here is so church festivals are really popular in Cincinnati. And
Okay.
we really mapped out a strategy all summer long where we said, okay, where are all the church festivals in our territory in Cincinnati? And prior to that church festival, we would donate a silent auction item. So it was usually like a gift certificate for our services. We would distribute door hangers in the neighborhoods all around the church that was having the festival the week or two before. We'd put yard signs on all the roads leading to the church so that
Yeah.
the people going to the church festival would see it. And then we would also target social media, and then we'd show up there, and of course you show up in a kilt, and you do get more attention than if we were showing up in polo and khakis. But nonetheless, we would show up to the church festival, and people would come up to us and say, "We see your guys everywhere." And what's funny about that is we heard that the first summer we were open, so I was only open for a few months, we had one truck and one technician. But in the eyes of the consumers in our area, they had the impression that this kilted invasion had happened, that we had all kinds of people running around their town, but it was only in their neighborhood. Like it was like we created that feeling that we were everywhere. And yeah, so they thought we had like, I don't know, 10
Yeah.
to 20 employees probably. I don't know. So
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. The marketing world is one that I've never been in marketing, but I've always been tied to it because I've been in sales. And so marketing and sales tend to work together, at least in some form or fashion. And I've always been fascinated by the channels that you choose to brand yourself on, like a TV commercial or like direct mailers or yard signs, especially the ones that you can't really tie a number to. Like Google Ads, you can look at your analytics and be like, we got 100 leads and converted 30 of them. Like it's cool, but like it's kind of like those old school TV commercials. Like everybody believed in the commercial, but
mhm.
I don't know how you tie the analytics to it. And also
Right.
the same thing like a billboard. And so the direct mail is an interesting one. I like that because I agree with you that it's my mailbox is not as flooded as it used to be. I actually signed up my lawn care guy off of a direct mailer because I was new to the neighborhood. I didn't feel like going and talking to all my neighbors to be like, who are you using? So I called up Joe and he's been great. And so I think there's definitely, obviously, besides being in the direct mailer space, I think there's obviously strategy around that as to not come off spammy and, all that different strategy once you get into it. But I definitely agree with you that that's an interesting one. Well, let's wrap it up here, Jennifer. If we always like to ask if you could go back to your younger self, whether that was a year ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, and tell your younger self anything that would be helpful to you in your role now, what would that be for you?
Well, I would have been an entrepreneur much earlier, for
Mm-hmm.
one. Um, I just love it, and I think a lot of people are afraid to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and that is where getting into a franchise makes that leap a little bit less frightening.
Yeah.
And I wish I had done it. I wish I had done it sooner to build that wealth.
Mhm.
And um, also the experience, just,
Yeah.
having, our young guys that are out there. It takes hustle, when you have a business. So it's important to keep that in mind and, make sure that you're out there doing all the things. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
You stole mine. That's always the one that I go with when people ask me is I would have just started. I would have started way sooner. I would have failed. I would have tripped. I would have learned, and I would have kept going. But I definitely would have started earlier. So definitely align with you there. Well, Jennifer, again, we appreciate the time. If you want folks to find you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, so they can reach me at Jennifer Faz at meninkilts.com.
Okay, perfect. We'll make sure to link that here in the episode, and I'm sure we'll be speaking very soon. Jennifer, thanks again.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.